Hi guys, and welcome to another video. So today I'm going to be showing you how to make these 3 super simple sweet treat desserts, but they're all super different, so they'll be sure to satisfy in all those different ways that you want. But yeah, let's get right into it. Alright, so jumping into our first recipe, we're going to grab some matcha powder, some coconut butter, and some coconut oil, along with some maple syrup. And then we're going to start by adding our coconut products into a double boiler and melting those together. And once they've kind of combined, you can either add some optional vanilla if you'd like, and then stir in that maple syrup. And once this kind of melts together, it's going to start getting really thick. And then once it's really thick, you're going to stir in your matcha powder, and it's going to look like a kind of scary color. But I promise, once it comes out of the mold and once it comes out of the freezer, it's going to look a lot more inviting and cute. So I'm just using some silicone molds, but you can also use a parchment lined dish of any kind that you would like. And then you just place this into the freezer and you chill this, and you actually will serve it out of the freezer as well. And yeah, it's super chewy and yummy and soft and sweet and has a really great flavor. Alright, so moving on to our next treat, we are going to be making these super easy vegan apple turnovers. And these are so easy because we're going to be using a pre-made puff pastry dough, so you don't have to worry about making a finicky pastry dough. So the first thing you're going to do is cube up some apple, basically just cutting into slices and then cubing them up. It's going to look like this when you're done. And then in a large skillet, we're going to add some vegan butter, all of our chopped apples, and give that a nice toss. And then we're going to be adding some cinnamon sugar. You can also just add the sugar on its own and then add in the cinnamon if you want. I just had some lying around pre-made. And then you're going to add in some brown sugar. And then I thought this needed a little bit more cinnamon, so I went ahead and added that there. And then also a pinch of salt, just because. And then we're going to go ahead and stir this, and it's going to get really nice and bubbly and caramelized. And then I also put a lid over the top at some point just to help kind of steam them through and get them really soft. So once they're done, they're going to look about like that. And then we can just flour a surface and add our puff pastry dough. This is just a singular sheet of puff pastry, and it's going to make 4 apple turnovers with this recipe, pretty big ones. So we're gonna give this a roll, and then I'm going to cut it into the 4 slices, like 4 little rectangles, and that's how I'm going to be making my apple turnovers. And then taking one of these little pieces of dough at a time, I'm gonna give them another roll to get that dough really nice and thin. And then I'm going to start by putting in a couple of tablespoons of that apple filling. So you don't wanna overfill them, but you do wanna make sure they have enough filling for the proportion of dough that you have, and you can kind of move the filling around so it gets to the corners. And then you're going to just turn over your apple turnover, and then I'm using a fork to kind of cinch or pinch down the sides, and then at the very corners I'm just kind of rolling them over like this. And then you're going to want to put them on a lined baking sheet, and then we're going to make a little, I don't know what to call it, but it's basically how we're going to help it's like an egg wash, but it's a vegan egg wash, and there's no egg in it. So it's basically almond milk and then some maple syrup. And this is going to get super caramelized and really pretty on the top. So just brush this mixture all over your apple turnovers. And then we're going to take the remainder of that cinnamon sugar, and we're going to sprinkle that over top. Again, you could just sprinkle over some cinnamon and then some sugar. But this is also going to get brown and crispy and really sweet and make them look really pretty when they come out of the oven. So I wouldn't skip it. And then once these come out of the oven, they're going to be super golden brown and just amazing. They're literally such an easy recipe, but they seem so professional because you're using that puff pastry dough, and they're just so good. Honestly, they're dangerous. I want to make them all the time. Okay, and now you can transfer your hot apple turnovers onto a cooling rack so that they can cool down. And yeah, these are just super crispy and yummy and like really feel professional, even though they're just so easy. So I hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. Alright, so moving on to our final recipe, we are going to be making these vegan no-bake cheesecakes with a berry compote. And these are really delicious and super easy to make. I love having them in the freezer at all times. So first we're going to make the crust by adding some almond flour, some coconut oil, some oats, and then some maple syrup. And then we're just going to pop the lid on and give this a process until it starts to come together. And then you're going to go ahead and take your muffin tins that have liners in them, and this is where we're going to put the mixture and just press it down either with your hands or like a spatula until it's firm. And then once all your tins are done, this is what they will look like. All right, so moving on to the berry compote portion of this recipe, we're going to start by adding some frozen fruit, water, and then maple syrup to the mix, along with some lemon juice, optionally if you have it. And then we're gonna give this a stir and let it kind of come to a low boil and cook it so the fruit kind of breaks down a bit. And then at this point, we're gonna add a cornstarch slurry to thicken it up. And then once it's thick, we're just going to remove it from the heat and let it cool down a little bit while we make our filling. To make our filling, we're gonna start by adding some soaked cashews into our food processor, along with some lemon juice, lemon zest, and then maple syrup for sweetness, and then a little bit of coconut oil as well. This just gives it like kind of a really creamy and smooth texture. And then you're gonna blend this together and then add your almond milk to help it come together even more and get smoother. And then I'm just gonna blend this even more. And then this is kind of the texture we want. And I'm just going to spoon that into my muffin-lined little tins, filling that up maybe 3/4 of the way. And then once those are full, you can put about 1 tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of the berry compote on top of them. And then using either a little toothpick, or I just have a little spoon here, I'm kind of swirling them in the top to give it like, I don't know, just make it a little prettier. And then that is the end of this recipe. You're just gonna pop these into the freezer, and when they come out, they're gonna be super yummy and just like creamy and delicious. Just make sure that if you store these in the freezer that you let them warm up a little bit to room temperature for about 10 minutes before cutting into them. Otherwise, you can actually store them in the fridge if you're going to eat them within like the next week and a half. Alright, so thanks so much for watching, you guys. If you made it to the very end of the video, please give it a like and subscribe if you're interested in more videos. I hope you enjoyed these recipes, and I'll see you in the next one.